Good morning, everyone. I am Assemblyman Michael Tanusis. I represent the 64th Assembly District, which is the East Shore of Staten Island and Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. I am joined today here with my colleagues because on Thursday, Governor Hochul will be testifying before the House Oversight Committee regarding the sanctuary city policy and how it has affected New York State. We are here because myself, along with my colleagues, have drafted a letter to the chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, the Honorable Congressman James Comer, with a series of questions that we would like the committee to ask Governor Hochul in the pursuit of accountability in this state. Why are we doing this? We are doing this because for the past several years, as a migrant crisis has attacked New York State, people have come in the hundreds of thousands into New York City. They have benefited from the policies set forth by the City of New York and of the State of New York, including sanctuary city policy, other laws such as bail reform, and as a result of that, the taxpayers have spent a whopping amount of money on illegal migrants instead of spending it on the citizens of this state. And this is all happening as New York State continues to be one of the highest tax states in the union, and as people continue to flee to other more affordable places to raise a family. There have been people on both sides of the aisle, not just Republicans. Mayor Eric Adams, in the beginning, he was welcoming of the migrants. Then when he realized how many migrants were actually entering New York City and how much money the city of New York would have to spend on housing these migrants, he then called for an end to it by the federal government. All this, while happening, still did not cause the governor, the legislature, held by the Democratic Party, to make any changes to sanctuary city policy to actually put an end in this state. Public safety continues to be at risk. The reason I ran for this seat to begin with was because as a prosecutor, back in 2019, when this state passed discovery reforms and the bail reform laws, I knew that our public safety was at risk and that life as a police officer, as a prosecutor, as a New York State taxpayer would not be the same. Guess what? 4 or 5 years later, we're still in the same situation. I have sat here in my third term as New York State has passed 5 budgets, none of them making substantive changes to bail reform or increasing judicial discretion in any way. Let's talk about the migrant crisis and what we have seen from it. Governor Hochul, using her emergency powers, allocated a no-bid contract for $432 million. That money needed to be spent because of the sanctuary city policy instead of going to the hardworking taxpayers of this state. No bid, no questions asked. Where did that money go? Why did that money go to this company? These are questions that need to be asked in the Oversight Committee. Misplaced spending priorities. Can anyone guess how much the state of New York has spent on services for illegal migrants? $4.3 billion. $4.3 billion spent by the state of New York for services related to illegal migrants. Think about how much money that is. Think about how much money potentially that could have gone into the pockets of the New York State taxpayers if you divvy it up by population. But instead, because of the policies set forth in this legislature, carried forward by Governor Hochul, they spent $4 $1.3 billion on services for illegal migrants. I ask the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Congressman Comer, I ask the Republican members of this committee, ask the pertinent questions to make sure there is accountability in New York State. This is your opportunity to ask the hard-hitting questions to Governor Hochul and to hold her and the leadership of this state accountable for what has been happening during the past few years. With that being said, I would like to introduce a great partner in the Assembly. He is a retired lieutenant from the police department and now represents a portion of Buffalo in the State Assembly, Assemblyman Pat Kluczynski.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assemblyman Pat Kluczynski, and I represent the 143rd District in the New York State Assembly, which covers parts of western New York, the towns of Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and part of the city of Buffalo. I want to thank Assemblyman Tannousis for his leadership on this issue, and as our Assembly Republican Conference continues our efforts to hold this administration accountable for providing transparency for our taxpayers and making public safety a priority from the consequences of this terribly mismanaged migrant crisis. Many people associate the negative impact of the migrant crisis solely with New York City, but I am here to remind everyone today that communities in Western New York also paid a heavy price financially as well as from a public safety perspective. In good faith, the Maryvale school system in my district ramped up services on short notice and incurred $800,000 in additional expenses to a small school district to educate the children of undocumented migrants bused from New York City. They were promised full reimbursement for their costs. More than a year later, they received less than 30% of what they were owed with no hope of seeing another dollar. I was a lieutenant with the town of Cheektowaga Police Department when busloads of unvetted, undocumented individuals were forced into our community with no understanding of the needs these people were being transported in needed, the magnitude of the costs, or the effect on the communities and local governments involved. Over the next several months, what I witnessed firsthand was hundreds of emergency police calls to the migrant hotels for every conceivable crime imaginable. There were felony assaults, there were sexual assaults, there were robberies, there were public nuisance complaints, there were misdemeanors, there were migrants committing crimes against local residents, and there were migrants committing crimes against each other. There were hundreds of ambulance and other emergency medical service calls to these locations. The strain on the local government resources was tremendous, but there was not $1 of state aid or assistance for Cheektowaga or its surrounding communities, while New York City received billions of dollars. For more than a year now, first as a candidate and now as an elected official, I have tried to get answers for the people and organizations in my community that were negatively impacted by this migrant crisis. I have worked with my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate to get basic information on the people that were transported to upstate New York, what neighborhoods they have been relocated to, how they were vetted to ensure we weren't placing dangerous criminals and gang members into our neighborhoods, and how much taxpayers have paid for this incredibly expensive undertaking, all to no avail. Now, I hope that the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform can get some answers to these questions that we deserve and have waited so long for. So let's be absolutely clear. Our objections to this administration's sanctuary state policies are not discriminatory towards any class or ethnicity. We will strongly reject any narrative that claims otherwise. We all share an immigrant heritage and recognize the immense contributions people from every walk of life have made to our state and nation. We fully support those who follow our laws and enter our state and country legally, and like generations before them, that contribute positively to our society while building better lives for their families. Regrettably, this is not what has occurred here. The outcome here has been far different. Flawed policies, a severe lack of planning, and irresponsible decisions have left us with vital questions ignored and major problems left unaddressed. Our state must focus on the well-being of its law-abiding citizens first, before accommodating those who are here illegally and here committing crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, I also want to say to anyone out there who thinks to themselves, well, this doesn't affect me in any type of way. Yes, maybe the state spends a little more than needed on these types of services, but how does that affect me in my daily life? Ladies and gentlemen, a few months ago, an illegal Turkish migrant named Sakira Khan kidnapped and raped a 15-year-old girl here in the capital region, was released with just a ticket. An individual that shouldn't have been here to begin with. He was here illegally. I have said this from the very beginning. I am not anti-immigration. I am the son of immigrants. My parents came here from the island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean. My dad came here with $300 in his pocket and the American dream. He didn't come here expecting a handout, nor would he take it. My parents worked hard for the American dream. I am a product of that American dream. I am privileged to represent a district full of immigrants that work hard for the American dream. But the insanity has to end. The insanity here has to end. We cannot service the 7 billion people that live around the globe and decide they are going to move to New York City. With that being said, I'd open it up to any questions.
So, obviously the House testimony, the hearing this week, what follow-up are you expecting? What would you like to see from the House committee after the hearing this week?
I want the House committee to be prepared in their knowledge of how this policy has affected the residents of this state, how it has continued to make it unaffordable, the amount of money that has been spent on it. And I would like them to ask the governor directly in Congress regarding how it has affected. I would like them to ask her why she has not made an effort to change sanctuary city policy, to change bail reform, to change all these policies that continue to make New Yorkers unsafe. So to answer your question, I'd like to see accountability, and I'd like the congressional committee after the governor's testimony to continue on that path to accountability, however they see fit.
Any other questions? Apologies, I came a little late, so this was covered before me. But the New York for All bill is being pushed this week. This is a very broad sanctuary statehood legislation, essentially preventing both state and local entities from coordinating with ICE and other federal immigration enforcement authorities. So I'm just wondering about your thoughts on this legislation. It doesn't seem like it has the votes necessarily to pass, but considering everything that we've been seeing in Los Angeles over the last several days, are you concerned with its possibility then?
Okay, so I have to tell you, and my colleagues will attest to this, the past couple weeks, I have continuously used the tagline, some of the stupidest legislation to come forth in the Assembly. That takes the cake. As we continue on this path here and continue to talk about the unaffordability of New York State, and now to pass a law that prevents the federal government from actually carrying out their duties and doing their jobs, which is basically to keep New York State residents safe, New York City residents safe. Yes, I do worry if that goes forward, but I am hopeful that my colleagues, not just on this side of the aisle, but on the other side of the aisle, actually understand the importance of having federal authorities that will actually be able to carry out their duties in protecting the state. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you very much.